Hey guys, welcome back everyone. This is the second part of the ongoing video series that we have of Zero to Hero in Python. So in the previous video, we saw how to work with numbers, how to install Python, and various different types of editors that we can use for Python. Now we are proceeding further with the complex programming and structures. So when we proceed with these complex programming structures, we need to have one thing in mind. We need to assign numbers to a particular variable while doing this. So this is when variable assignment comes in place. So this is done so that we can easily utilize them in a program without actually having to use the number again and again. So this might sound a little bit confusing, but in a minute you will understand what I am talking about. So just for an example, let's say that I have 5 balls. So the number of balls that I have in my hands are 5. So I'll assign it to a number n is equal to 5. So this so instead of using the number 5 again and again throughout my code, I'll just assign a number n is equal to 5 and then use that variable n anywhere in the program. So there are like a set of rules that basically govern these variable names. The best thing about these rules is that you don't have to basically mug up or basically remember all of these rules. When you go ahead and program and use these numbers or symbols or anything that is not basically allowed to be used as a variable name in Python, you will get to know when we do the programming, as it will throw an error. So going through the rules for variable names once, that variable name in a Python cannot start with a number. So you cannot have one underscore something as a name in a Python variable, and there are no spaces allowed in a name, and we can just use underscore. So special symbols that are there, such as ampersand, comma, double quotes, brackets, parentheses, at the rate, ampersand, any of these signs, we cannot use this. We can only use underscore sign. So let's say if I have to like just for a previous example that I gave you, if let's say we have number of balls is equal to 5 and we have similar number of thing for the other, so for the other variable, so just to differentiate it, we can give it a name n underscore balls is equal to 5. So in this way basically you can differentiate between different variable names. So special symbols apart from underscore, as I already said, cannot be utilized, and these are the examples of the symbols. Naming variables in a lower case is basically considered a best practice. So when we do complex programmings, we basically do not start with a capital letter. If we are naming something in Python, we'll get to know at later stage why we do this, because there are some things, some cases when we utilize Python in relation to other programming languages. So this is also one of the advantages of using Python, that it can easily be utilized in conjunction with other programming languages that we use. So it is a best practice that we do not name a variable in uppercase. So naming a variable in a lowercase is considered as a best practice. Also, do not use special keywords like list, int, str, float, etc. As a variable name. It will not take these variable names. As I previously pointed it out, we don't have to basically remember all the rules. We can, when we program and when we go ahead and use these special keywords or these special symbols, it will throw an error message. So yeah, this would be the rules of basically naming a variable. So Now moving on with this, there is one very interesting thing in Python that is not basically present in any other programming language that we know of. So basically Python uses something that is called as dynamic typing. So what is dynamic typing? I'll tell you. So dynamic typing means that we can basically reassign different data types to a single variable name, unlike any other programming languages. Other programming languages such as C, C++, Java are statically typed. This means that once a value of a particular data type is assigned to the variable, it cannot be changed at a later stage in a program. This cannot be changed at any cost in a program. So this can be understood with a simple example that we can see. So let's say in Python I can write it as friends is equal to 3, and then I can change this data type to friends is equal to and make it a list as Ronan, Panda and Alien. These are my go-to names. So that is okay in Python. But if I go to another programming languages as in C++, so first of all I'll have to specify the data type, that is int friends is equal to 3. That means that it has already been taken up as an integer. So the friends data type, so the friends variable name has already been taken up as an integer. So this means that int friends is equal to 3 is now logged. So when later on moving on into the program, when I type it as friends is equal to Ronin, this will result in an error. So this is an example of static typing in different languages, whereas in Python this is sort of an error. This is sort of an advantage. So we don't have to basically initialize any data type while writing a program in this. So what does dynamic data type means, and it has advantages as well. This means variable names can be basically reassigned to a different value or a variable in Python. So it does not mean that once a variable has an integer data type at the starting of a program, if we want, we can change it to let's say a character or a float or a string data type as we want later on in a program to represent different things. This also makes Python a very flexible language when it comes to assigning and reassigning of data types. So in other languages we have a difference in this respect, as they are statically typed, as I already told you through the example. So you guys can go through this example once again, and you can type it out in your editor and find it out why this does not work. So it will always throw up a data type error when you try in C++ or in Python or in Java or in C#, in any other language apart from Python. When you have already assigned a data type like integer to a variable called friends once in a program when you are starting it, and then again if later on in the code you later on in the code you say that friends is equal to Ronin, or try to give it a different name, this would throw up an error. This happens because we won't be able to say friends is equal to Ronin, as it is now no longer equal to an integer, and would basically result in an error. So while this dynamic data type has a lot of I would say advantages, it also has a lot of cons. So weighing the pros of cons of dynamic data type, so the pros being that we don't have to write out the actual data type while we are writing our code. So this thing in turn saves us a lot of time and makes it comparatively easy and faster to write the code, and also makes the code very readable, as we are just reading the variable names, and basically we are not reading out the data type when we are reading a program. So basically pros includes it's easy to work with and saves time and makes development time also faster, and also makes the code readable. Now as a coin has two sides, so this also has the same thing. The pros that we mentioned can also be cons in some cases, as it may result in some bugs. These bugs arise maybe due to the unexpected data types, because we do not have any restrictions for data types in place, especially in case of user input. So we might actually forget while we are writing a program that what data type did we initially use while we are writing a program. So let's say I initialize something as an integer very early on to the program, but later on as I progress into a program, progress into the code, I just forget what data type that I initialized for a variable name, and I turn that variable name into a string data type. So when I utilize it at a later step in the program, it hampers my it basically hampers the production of the program. So we may have an unexpected data type that may show up and cause problems later on in the operation of our code. So we should be aware of the data type while we are coding, or so that we can use we can basically do it correctly, or we can use a special type function that's built into Python and quickly check the type of any variable that we are utilizing. We'll come to that in a matter of time, and we'll show you how to do that in a little bit. So once again, going through the pros and cons of dynamic data type, it's easy to work with, saves times, makes development time faster, makes the code readable. And the cons being sometimes these dynamic data typing may result into bugs because of the unexpected data type that arises due to human error basically. And we basically need to be aware of the data type that is being utilized in the dynamic typing of a Python program. So enough of this. Now let's jump into exploring these concepts on a Jupyter notebook. So as far as what we have covered right now, we would be going through all of this in a Jupyter notebook. So just let me open a new Python 3 notebook. So in the previous videos you might remember the how we basically open a new Jupyter notebook. Okay, so now utilize these numbers in Python as a calculator, and in the previous things, so now we can assign these names and create variables. We are just going to create a very simple variable name, and let's call it A, and let's just call it A, and we can set it equal to, let's say, 5. So now we have assigned it a variable name, and so basically A is now assigned with a variable 5. And basically if I run my code anytime, let's say I run it, it's done. If I type out A, it will give me the output as 5. This means that my variable name A has been assigned with a variable 5. So for dynamic data typing, as I was telling, I can basically reassign any value to it, and I can say let's say A is equal to 10. I can reassign this variable, and then if I want to see the new value, now I can just simply type it out as A and then click on run. It will give me the new value that I've assigned to it as A is equal to 10. Yeah, so now I what I can do also is I can add those variables, and let's say A plus A, and now it will give me the result of this as 20. So we had reassigned the value of A as 10, and now when I do A plus A, so that means the basic calculator function that we learned in the previous video, we can now utilize it as A plus A now, which gives the output to us as 20. Now in Python it also allows you to reassign with a reference of the same object. So what does this mean? Let me just show you by an example. So we have our value of a still as 10. So now I can do a is equal to a plus a. So now when I run this piece of code, this will this and this what will this will do is this will reassign the value of a to the value of a plus a. So now when I type out this and run this, I'll get the output as a is equal to 20. So a is equal to 20. Now keep this in mind, if I run this one more time, so now my the variable name a has been assigned to a value of 20. So now if I run line 6, here we see a is equal to a plus a again, and then line 7 I run it again, it just doubles the value of a as 40. So this should give you the value of a plus a, and every time I run this code it will just double the value each time. Keep this in mind that this is a little different than in a script environment. If you are running a high script, you don't really see that effect because you'll just have that line once in an environment cell. You'll just have that line once. So in a cell environment like we have it in the Jupyter notebook, we'll have to run over the cell over and over again. So now let's imagine that to run the cell, so let's imagine that we don't know what data type it is. Where you can do is we can use the built-in data type function. Built-in data type function that is in Python. So what we can do is we can just run that built-in data type function. So it will be as type type, and we have an open and close parentheses in this, and later on we learn how to create our own functions. It's later on in the course. So between these parentheses you put on the type of the data that you want to know, and just click on run. Just put the variable name between the parentheses of this and you'll get to know the data type. So we get the output as integer data type. So this means that this has an int data type. And just a reminder that int is a keyword in that. So now let's say that I reassign a to a floating data type. Let's say a is equal to 10.1, or let's say a is equal to 10.5. Now if I run this and then do type again a to know the data type of what a is, and run it, now I'll see that the data type is float. So this is how basically this is the built-in data function that we were talking about before in the video, that we can use to determine the data type that we had assigned to a variable in the program, so that we do not have any bugs while we are compiling the program. So now I'll show you one thing. So as in the variable names, we spoke about that you will get to know that how and when you need to not use some variable names. So in case of special keywords, there is something that we can see. So you have been seeing, if I type something that is a special keyword, it turns into a different color. So let's see what's happening here. If I type it as int is equal to 4, so just notice there that int turns green. The rest of the things that I had written previously, like a, 10, 15, 20, this always remains black. So this is allowed as a variable name, but when I use it in the int part, it recognizes it as a special keyword. That's why it changes its color. So basically this is called a syntax highlighting in it. and it's also a special keyword, so we should not basically use it as a variable name for assigning it to something like we have done here as 4. So if you ever see that your variable name is having some special highlighting that a normal variable name doesn't, then it doesn't have them, and you should avoid using this. So definitely don't ever run that, because this I'll show you just an example. If you run this and I type int and then again run it, oh sorry, so see, this initially this does not throw an error, but it also does not gives me an output, so it's still expecting an input from my side. And if I do this my code, if I do this in a let's say a different environment than a cell environment, let's say a development environment, so this might run into an error. So if this is the mistake that I have made, so just to clarify that mistake, or just to rectify that mistake, that what we'll do is we can just rerun the cell, we can just rerun the whole kernel, as we can click on kernel and restart everything. So once I restart everything, all the errors that I have made and all the variable names, it would reset itself. So let's say if from here I run a again, and it will give it as a is equal to, sorry, yeah, it will give it me an error that name a is not defined. So when I run this the above cell again, and then again I run a, it will give me an output as 5, because previously I had not assigned any variable to a and I had run it directly. So it would have giving me an error every time I do this. So moving forward with this, as we have seen how a different variable name works, and we can have floating point, we can have integer, and we can basically utilize all these variable names. So just for a last example, I'll just want to do one thing with a very simple variable names. So let's say my underscore income is equal to 100, right? Then in the cell I will say my tax rate, let's say, is I have as a 10% tax, so it would be 0.1. Yeah, then I'll say my tax, and I want to figure out what my total paid tax is here, so I'll just give it tax underscore paid. So basically tax underscore paid would be equal to my underscore income into tax underscore rate. So basically now how much do I owe? I'll text my check my taxes using this. So now I can perform a logic with variable names that is a lot more readable than just integers or floating point numbers, because now I have this nice almost English sentence that says my taxes are equal to my income times my tax rate. So this would be like a very basic, very simple example of how variable names basically can change a program. So when I run this tab and I type tax paid, I'll now get example as 10. So yeah, so the tax that I paid is 10. Okay, so now we have learned some basic numbers in Python, and now we have learned how to assign variable names. In the next video we would be learning about strings. So we'll meet you in the next video, and thank you for this one.